Afternoon. Marc Boiron, I'm an attorney at Rutan and Tucker. So many of you have probably seen, or all of you have seen these news reports that have come out about the SEC. And if you go back, whatever it is, a year and a half ago, even further, when ICO started, you had a white paper. Then it slowly evolved into a white paper with maybe some risk factors in there. Then it turned into a SAFT or pre-sale agreement, same thing, whatever you want to call it. And really what happened is the SEC comes in and says, this is all a problem. And really what the SEC says and whether they're right or wrong doesn't really matter. What matters is that the SEC is coming before a company has actually finished an ICO, before they actually have money to do anything about it. The problem is, whether the SEC is right or wrong, you really don't have capital to fight what the SEC says, and so you really need to pay attention to it. And so really you do need to carefully structure your ICO to stay out of the SEC's crosshairs unless you have multiple $1 million to actually deal with them. And so what is it that people are doing nowadays? And they're really talking about kind of three concepts. One is, hey, let's look at international options. Then we look at pure securities offerings. And then if neither of those work, then let's still stick with the utility token concept anyway, which is an issue. So it's interesting because if you look at kind of pre-2018, it was really tax issues that were driving the international structure. Everybody was looking to go international, and then the tax changes kind of changed that. And really, it's the regulatory issues that are creating kind of a desire to go international. But what people don't realize is that staying out of the US isn't actually that easy. So if you have a majority of the voting stockholders that are in the US, and then most of your assets are in the US, or your business is in the US, then the SEC's jurisdiction is going to remain. And whether you do a Reg S offering or something else, the SEC is going to have jurisdiction. So the question is, how do you deal with US founders and management? And think about this. Every single white paper you've ever seen has an allocation for US founders or management if it's a US business with US founders and management. Guess what? The SEC is going to have jurisdiction, and you're going to have an offering of securities when you give them, when you grant them securities, as in the tokens, because that's the SEC's view. And so now that they are receiving securities, you need to look at what exemptions you can rely on. Is it going to be Rule 701? Is it going to be a 506B offering to them? Maybe you're able to rely on 4A2. In certain circumstances, you're going to have liquidity issues. So vesting is something that you should really be considering for management. But in certain instances, it's something that is problematic. Then you've got the US advisors that you need to deal with. They typically don't like to see the same vesting schedules as you're going to see with management or founders. And so now you've got US advisors who also you're looking at and you're like, what securities law exemption can you fit in if you're going to be receiving tokens? And again, they're not going to be looking for 12-month lockups. They're really not interested in that. The last point that I know everybody has heard, but I'm going to repeat, is if you're doing an offering outside of the US and you do good KYC, good AML procedures in place, you still can't ignore non-US laws. And so the answer is we really need to have, be working with a firm that is able to provide services abroad. Now, one of the things that's coming up all the time is, okay, we're going to sell abroad, but we need our user base in the US to have tokens. And so that's where the airdrop comes into play, and everybody says, okay, we're going to airdrop token to US users. The thing to keep in mind is I personally love airdrops for myself, but I still don't really see when somebody's done an airdrop that actually works under US law, because everybody's asking you to really sign up for Telegram or give an email address, all things that have value. The other thing is the SAFT. And when I say the SAFT, I'm talking about the construct of a month or so ago, as in a SAFT that then turns into a utility token. Again, unless you have millions of dollars and you're ready to go to court, that really doesn't work anymore. That being said, let's say you do choose to sell a utility token because you want to fight that battle with the SEC. Just go back to just common kind of principles that you think of, that you shouldn't expect private discussions with investors to actually stay private. So it comes up with clients all the time. I'm like, let's not talk about exchanges. Let's not talk about profits. And they're like, wink, wink, nod, nod. I'm like, no, I don't want any of that, because the SEC will find out about it. I'm also having a lot of clients who are coming to me and saying, we really want to consider, rescissions offers. They were working with another firm, and now they're like, this is a problem. I go through their social media channel, and I'm like, yeah, you do have a problem. So one thing that you actually want to ask your attorney to do is follow the companies that your company on their Telegram channel, on Discord, whatever it is, and I'll shoot texts over to my clients and tell them, hey, you should probably delete that message, change it in this way. Now going to what are things going to look like in the future? And the bottom line is liquidity. And the key is you're going to have whether it's a Reg A Plus offering or any other kind of securities offering, investors want to see liquidity. And unless we actually get liquidity in the markets, the securities offering really is a difficult thing to do. And so we're going to see that liquidity, whether it's T0, start engine secondary, Templum. There's a lot of options out there. Either way, just remember, the ICO world is borderless, and so you've got options for structuring things in many ways, and the ICO world is going to kind of live on regardless of what the SEC does.